Hello and welcome to my highlights from the second round of the Multiclass Monthly Championship. This is an event that is held monthly on the 8th Gear Racing server on 5M, and in this particular event only the top 75 can qualify, so what you're watching now is my qualifying lap from the event. There were 85 entries, I believe, this month, or at least 85 people participating in qualifying. So only the top 75 of those can make it into the race, so first of all, my goal is just to try and be in that top 75. That shouldn't be too challenging. But then beyond that, there's also an additional sort of splitting up of that 75, where the top 25 will be racing in the fastest car, which is the car we're currently using at the minute, the Coquette Blackfin. But then the next 25 starts positions 26 to 50. They'll be in a slower car, which I believe was the Roosevelt this week, and then the slowest 25 out of the top 75 that qualify, they'll be in another slower car again. I can't remember which car that was. It was a truck of some sort, maybe like a Sadler or something like that, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so my primary goal is just to qualify in the top 75, but realistically my actual goal is to try and be in that top tier, in the top 25, sorry. And then my sort of additional bonus goal that would be quite nice to achieve but isn't necessarily guaranteed, I'd quite like to qualify in the top 5. So being in the top 5 out of 85 people participating, that would be quite nice, because it's been quite a long time really since I've done any competitive racing in this game. So I'm really just sort of trying to find my feet again in racing in this game. And I think top 5 would be quite nice, because there's some quite competitive people participating in this event, some very quick drivers. So top 5 would definitely be a challenge, especially because in the lead up to this event, I'd been on holiday for about a week or so I hadn't really had a chance to play the game for a week leading up to this. I'd sort of quickly logged on for about 30 minutes the night before, and then another 30 minutes the morning of, in order to just try and sort of de-rust a little bit. So yeah, this is my qualifying lap for this event this week. Just made a little mistake there, which is a bit annoying. I think without that mistake I could have gone a few tenths faster, which might have been worth a position or two on the grid. But yeah, anyway, I'll leave you to watch the rest of the lap, and I'll see you later in the video. So I managed to qualify in 5th position, as you can see in the top left of the screen. That's where the position counter is, so keep an eye on that throughout the race. So yeah, I managed to achieve my goal, which was to finish qualifying in the top 5. So I was quite happy with that. But because of that, that means I am now surrounded by quite a few quick drivers. And so my aim through the race is not a particularly ambitious one. I'm hoping to avoid losing any positions. That's kind of my main goal really. So far we've managed to stay on track for that. Had a decent start, got a little bit of a gap to the cars in front, but mainly what I'm worried about is the gap to the cars behind, and we've got quite a big gap already. So it's looking pretty good for being able to achieve our target, which again for this race is just to try and avoid losing any positions. So realistically, if I can finish the race in the top 5, then I'll be quite happy with that. And just like that, we're now down into 11th place, which is quite annoying. It's particularly annoying because in the practice that I had done for this race, I took that line using the rock in order to sort of gain a little bit of an extra curb boost. I took that line many times, and as far as I can recall, I didn't have any issues with it. I was able to do it fairly consistently without having any issues at all. But on this particular occasion, I guess what must have happened is I must have just put a little bit too much of my car over it, and therefore the hitboxes actually hit the rock rather than just the wheels, and then sent the car up in the air and I've had a bit of an accident. And it was particularly painful as well because the way that the car flipped around, it took ages for it to sort of get back on its wheels. Bit of an annoying one, and I'm at this point just sort of assessing okay, what is the damage, what position have I gone down to? I can see that I'm down in 11th place. Trying to work out who I've got in front of me as well, see if I sort of recognise any of the names, if I know how they drive, that kind of thing, see if I can work out how difficult is it actually going to be in order to try and regain those positions, because in my head I'm still thinking, okay, that's pretty unfortunate, but we've still got basically a full hour of racing left. So even though I'm aware that I'm down at 11th and my goal is to try and finish top 5, it's not out of the question that I could sort of, if I continued to sort of, well, not continue to drive well, because I haven't driven well up to this point, I crashed, but if I drive consistently from this point onwards, then it's not out of the question that I could sort of regain those positions and finish in the top 5. It does make it a lot more difficult, but I'm still going to give it a go. Yet another costly mistake, and yet another costly mistake where really I couldn't blame anyone other than myself as well. That was quite an unfortunate one, even though I do still have to obviously take the blame for it. As you can see from my perspective, I lagged into the back of one of those GT3 cars. I just misjudged how big my lag bubble was going to be, basically. I wasn't trying to be aggressive, and I wasn't trying to sort of force my way past. It was just one of those unfortunate situations where the speed difference was so large that I just completely misjudged how big my lag bubble would be. So yeah, a bit unfortunate. I know for next time that I need to be even more cautious than I was being, because genuinely I thought I was being cautious, but evidently not enough. And yeah, so I know for next time. And that was quite annoying as well, because I had managed to get back up into 6th place. It was going quite well. It looked as though top 5 was definitely going to be back on the cards, but now back down into 9th place after all of that. It's looking like it's going to be even more of a challenge again. So one of the things that I need to explain about this race is that we have fuel consumption in this race, which is something that the developers of this server have managed to sort of modify into the game. which is quite cool. It adds kind of a different dimension to things. And so we have 2 mandatory pit stops in this race. However, to actually make it to the finish, we're going to need to pit more times than that anyway. So this is me coming in for my first pit stop. I didn't have enough fuel in the fuel tank in order to make it around for another lap, so I had to come around. So I had to come into the pits on this particular lap. Otherwise, I would have run out of fuel on my next lap. In order to refuel, what we have to do is we have to come into the pit lane, which is marked by these red checkpoints, and then we come to a stop. And then when you come to a stop, the fuel level of the car will rise, and then, as you can see, I've driven away once the fuel tank was back to the full. You don't have to stop until the car has a full fuel tank. You can choose to leave whenever you want. You can choose to have whatever fuel load you want, but I chose to fill the fuel tank at this point because I'd had a bit of a stressful race up to this point, so I hadn't really had much of an opportunity to sort of work out what my fuel consumption was properly. I knew that I didn't have enough to make it another lap, but I wasn't sure exactly what my fuel consumption was at this point, so I didn't take any risks, and I just filled up the fuel tank to the maximum. And so we come out in the pits in 10th place. So we're still going to try and get top 5, but it is, after those 2 accidents, it's looking like it's going to be quite challenging. So as we came back into the pits there for our second pit stop, we were in 6th position, having made up a few positions from dropping back down to around about 10th earlier after that second incident. And we came in the pit stop quite close behind a couple of cars in front as well. And one of the things that I had noticed with my fuel consumption, now that I'd had a bit more time to work it out, was that we basically had a bit of surplus in the fuel tank. I knew that I was going to have to make a third pit stop in order to make it to the finish, due to the amount of time that was remaining and the amount of time that we'd completed so far. So I knew that a third pit stop would be necessary, and in order to get back around to the pits to make that third stop, I only needed a certain amount of fuel in the fuel tank, and that basically meant that I actually didn't need to wait for it to fill completely in order to get back around. I was able to leave the pits with a bit under a full tank, and so that I think in that particular pit stop it allowed me to leapfrog the 2 cars that were in front, and so that was ultimately the goal, you know, to spend less time in the pits, and then try and get some clear air in front. Now, as I said, I am going to have to make a 3rd pit stop, so yeah, let's see how this all plays out. So what you've just seen there is that we've gained a further 2 positions, 1 position because someone else was on a different fuel strategy, and another position because someone left the race after a bit of an unfortunate incident joining the pits. So yeah, we're in the pits now for our 3rd and final stop, and we're in 3rd position, and we've got a little bit of a gap to the car behind the 4th, and at this point I could see the amount of time left in the race, and I knew I was quite far behind the leader, but I wasn't sure exactly how far behind the leader was. And the reason that that's important is because that determines kind of whether there was going to be 1 lap left of the race or only 2. And because I wasn't sure whether there was going to be 1 lap or 2 laps left, because I wasn't sure how far behind the leader I was, I actually went conservative and filled for 2 laps remaining. But as you can see, the car in front, they spent much less time in the pits, and that's because they filled for only 1 lap remaining. So it's going to be interesting. If things stay as they are, then I'll finish behind the car in front, but maybe there's 2 laps remaining, maybe they've underfueled, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. So we left the pits from our final pit stop in 5th place, but we've actually just gained another place in the 4th because one of the cars in front of us tried to make it to the end, I think on 2 pit stops, but I think they miscalculated, and yeah, ended up running out of fuel on the last lap, which is unfortunate. But yeah, we also miscalculated because this is actually the last lap. We put 1 more fuel in than was necessary, which means yeah, we got leapfrogged in the final pit stop, which is a bit unfortunate, but well played by Leosa, who goes on to take 3rd place. But yeah, we take 4th place, which I was very happy with, especially because, as I said at the start of the video, it's been quite a while since I've done any competitive racing, so I'm just trying to get back into it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next one.